All right, we are now live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Socialist Hype House. We've got these three wonderful people here. Myself, Crazybeard. We got HungryRye, and we got GabiKatharina. We're just going to have about an hour's worth of conversation, and after that, we'll take some questions. So we'll just go around the table real quick. We'll introduce ourselves in case you don't know who we are. I'm Crazybeard. I do political / social stuff on TikTok. HungryRye, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm HungryRye. I do political and feminist content on TikTok also.
Yeah, and I'm GabiKatharina. I do mostly political activist work alongside with the LGBTQIA plus community as well as the Black Lives Matter movement.
And if they don't know who you are, I don't know where they've been. I think you are probably the biggest leftist on TikTok, at least.
It's kind of weird.
So maybe we start with that. How does it feel being so seen all the time?
Honestly, initially it was kind of cool because I'm like, wow, a lot of people are seeing my content, people are responding positively to it. But then with that is so much backlash that I get for saying anything, from all sides too. But it's mostly just the Republican troll people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird being under a microscope sometimes, but it's also really awesome to see the amount of people that I help. Because when I do have time to go through my DMs, I just see so many messages of people being like, oh my God, you kind of saved me. And I was like, that's crazy to me that I have that big of an impact on some people's lives.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, I've got a much smaller platform than you, but I can definitely say I feel that same thing. People love to hate you.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, into the political activist stuff. You were recently at some of the protests for Black Lives Matter. Yeah, how'd that go?
Yes, I went to the Black Lives Matter protest in Boston last Tuesday with a group of my friends. It was kind of scary to go because, when you see everything online, you're kind of like, is this going to happen? But at the same time, you're like, it's kind of my duty as someone who considers themselves an ally and who is fully able to go out in public and, protest alongside other people who feel the same way that I feel. And I mean, actually seeing what happens is so much different than what's actually being shown to the media. And actually having the firsthand experience has helped me so much with actually understanding how everything is working.
Yeah,
definitely. How was it? Was there I've been seeing it's controversial. Either people say that the protesters are inciting violence or it's the police officers inciting violence. Did they tear gas you or mace you guys at all?
I didn't get maced personally. So we started marching at Franklin Park, which is near Roxbury, which is one of the biggest, which has some of the biggest Black community in Boston. So it's kind of already has this very bad relationship with the police in that area. But for the most part, the beginning of it was very peaceful. We walked from Franklin Park to Malcolm X, which is right near where the Boston Police Department is. And the only thing that really happened that was minorly a bit of tension was we had to let police cars come through to watch the protesters, not looters, instead of, what they should be focusing on. But that was really the only moment of tension with the actual protest itself. It was mostly very peaceful and there were so many people that showed up, but it was weird because there were so many helicopters flying around and drones and stuff like that for a peaceful protest. And at that point, it was just, the big speakers talking about, why we need to be supporting Black Lives Matter, why this affects our own community, even if we don't see it before our own eyes, and ways that we can actually help to support the movement that aren't just limited to, online virtue signaling. But as we were leaving the protest, I was walking down the street and I was live streaming because after what happened to Jory Alluring Skull last Sunday, and with all these curfew things changing, I decided to record it just in case something happened or if something happened to me. So just people would know that I'm not, missing. And we're walking down a street and there were people standing in front of a police car because they were blocking traffic. And they weren't even like, no one was doing anything. It was very peaceful and they were just standing there, and they didn't ask them to move. They just immediately pushed back against the protesters, and they started macing people. And one guy even like this one guy got beat up so bad, and he was just completely like bloody afterwards. It was really bad. But they were just super violent. They like pulled out guns on people, and no one was really being aggressive whatsoever. They were just protesting peacefully, which actually seeing it happening and actually seeing the police officers fighting back against peaceful protesters is kind of off-putting, because, you know, as a child and someone who's grown up, while I moved to a predominantly very white community, you kind of don't learn that you have this disdain for the police. You kind of always think that, oh yeah, they serve and protect us. If you need help, you call the police. But then you realize some people can't call the police, because what if they like mistake them for some way, or if they put their life in danger, even though they're the ones that need help.
Definitely. And it's especially like you hear these cases about like Breonna Taylor, where she was brutally murdered in her own home while she was asleep.
Right.
It's absolutely abhorrent, and I think that's why there's such a massive call to kind of abolish police. Do you support that idea? Do you support the idea of abolishing police?
Yeah, I mean, looking historically at things that have been done in regards to the police, and even the origins of the police itself. I mean, police originated as slave patrol way back when that was an issue in the United States. And due to that racial context, and after the 13th Amendment was passed, they had to find a loophole to kind of support the country financially, because historically we've always relied on free labor of other people, and they were able to do that with prisoners. So it's kind of like a no-brainer when you see these things happening. You're like, oh, well, of course they're going to try and do that, because that's how the country has been successful, and they don't want to try and find a new way to be successful that is equitable to everyone.
And that even feeds into, like you talked about, criminals. That's why we have the war on drugs.
Exactly.
Nixon and Reagan, they don't care about people being safe. It's about putting black people in jail.
Exactly.
It's about getting that free labor. So I'm glad to hear you support abolishing police. There's been a lot of controversy recently. There was a poll that came out. I think it said 75% of Americans do not want to abolish police. And that just startles me, because it's like, are you watching what's happening? Did you see what happened to George Floyd?
Right.
And heard of Ahmaud Arbery and just all these people?
All these people that are, you know, getting affected by, you know, the system that has been corrupted. And when we say that, you know, all cops are bastards, we're not saying that all cops are bad people, because not all of them are inherently bad people. However, the system itself is corrupt and bastardous and isn't fair to everyone. And it doesn't serve everyone on the policy of liberty and justice for all. And it doesn't protect and serve the communities, because there are so many people who are innocent, who are fallen victim to police brutality every day. And we see it every single day now. I've seen on my feed every day a new person who has been affected or victimized by police brutality, which is horrible.
And I guess I won't go too far into socialist ideas right now, because we're not doing any debates or anything, but we as socialists, for the most part, we believe that the problem with police goes further than racial. It goes to the fact that they serve and protect the bourgeoisie, or the rich, the ruling class.
Exactly.
And I mean, I just wanted your thoughts on that. Do you think that's plausible? Do you think they're basically only there to protect Mr. Monopoly Man?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was talking to people who were in Boston at the first protest last Sunday. And at one point, when they were all trying to leave, the police actually trapped everyone in Boston. They shut down all of the transportation. So people kind of had to stand back and watch as, you know, violence is breaking out. And the police all protected the big luxury brands, all the big luxury places. So they're really only there to protect, you know, the very rich and the very affluent, because that's the system that they serve for. That's the people who pay them off the best. And those are the people that benefit them. I mean, I think that along those lines, America isn't necessarily racist as it is classist.
Yeah.
Because I think with, you know, crime itself, you're more likely to commit crime when you're impoverished.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As opposed to, you know, when you're rich. I mean, if you're affluent and rich, then you make crimes in another way, such as white collar crime.
Or exploiting your workers, which
exactly
could be a crime.
Classic capitalism. Capitalism kills.
It really does. So are we here? Is it confirmed, or are you coming to the socialist side?
Oh yeah, no, this isn't new news.
Okay, well, we're glad to know. We're happy you're on our side.
Absolutely, I'm glad to be here.
We Hungry. Do you want to talk about that book you're reading, maybe?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's Why Women Have Better Sex Under Socialism.
Yes,
Facts.
that is so real.
Literal facts.
I mean, Trump supporters are just not where it's at. I'm sorry. It's always bad.
Like,
Since
honey,
the
you're
days
just
of Marx,
suffering from capitalism.
Oh my god.
Even Marx, what was that quote? It was something like, "I want to abolish women as a means of production." Even Marx was a feminist, and it's crazy because he was alive in the 1800s, and when you think of the 1800s, you think of like super racism and super sexism.
Exactly.
But
I mean,
yeah, so go ahead.
But also, like, along those lines of thinking that women are, means of production, that's absolutely how some people feel about women in the United States, because they want to go back to this ideology and this belief system that, a woman's only purpose is to have children and be the homemaker, which is just not the case. And it's not something that is necessarily feasible anymore, because I feel as though women are like a necessity to our society to help us thrive and grow.
Well, Marx even talked about paying moms to be moms. So he was extremely progressive for his time.
It's because moms are producing the labor force for free, essentially.
Yep.
Exactly.
But this actually brings us to a great transition. I know that you had kind of like a little war going on with the people saying dishwashers.
Oh yeah.
How's that going? Have they stopped being? Well, obviously haven't, but how's that going?
Oh my god. I mean, that all kind of went back to, the fun old time when certain, I call them grape pears because I don't like to mention them by name because they're kind of like Beetlejuice. If you say it 3 times, they'll appear. Yeah. It kind of all went back to then when I kind of peeved them a little bit because I stood up for myself. And they all kind of flooded to my comment section, and it's kind of the same thing that happens with most women who post feminist content. They all kind of flock to your page and try and tear you down so you stop speaking about it, which is kind of what I gathered from, actually taking a break, because I did take a break. I did delete my account for a week, basically. And I realized that these people are only doing it to shut me up. And the only way to try and, get through it is to continue to speak up, even if I get continuous nonstop backlash from people.
I mean, you did make headlines.
Yes, I did, which is crazy.
But it's also good because we really need to start talking more about issues like this, because you go like to your family and friends and you don't think there's a problem with sexism, but you don't know what your friends are thinking. You don't know that there's some internalized sexism there. Even like women have problems being sexist. My mom, for example, I told her I had a female dentist a few weeks back, and she's like, "You have a female dentist? Really? You sure that's safe?" Like, yes, Mom, I'm sure that's safe. Pretty sure she went to school.
I trust women so much more than I trust men. So much more. Like, well, I don't know what it is.
Her. She at least puts up with me being a big baby, so I like that.
Oh my god. Yeah, whenever I see that like a woman is like in charge of something or is like helping me out with something like medically, I'm like, oh, thank God. Oh, thank God it's a woman. Because whenever I encounter a man, I always kind of notice like kind of an ego off of most like male authority figures. And it's always kind of deterred me from men, like 100%. It's kind of crazy, but like, who knows? Maybe that's just because I had a lot of male teachers in my like youth, and they were all kind of super duper sexist.
Yeah, and then you find the men that are like, well, not all men. Well, obviously,
oh, those are the worst.
That's not the goddamn point.
No, it's like, if you think it's referring to you, then you may be part of the problem.
Right.
Just maybe.
That's why I don't even get offended anymore when people are like, you're a simp. And I'm like, okay, that's great. I treat women good. That's bad.
Right, like what? Like I don't understand what they think simp means, because I always ask them to define simp, and they're like look. And I'm like, well, this is a different definition from the last person you referenced as a simp. So what is it?
Right.
I want to know.
I guess back on track with the TikTok drama. Are there any TikTok dramas that have made you like consider, other than when you did leave, made you consider just quitting for good?
Honestly, when I first got doxxed, actually, which was the first time I was doxxed, like big time, because I'd been like my address had been sent to me and stuff like that before. But when like when Nick Videos got doxxed, I also got doxxed.
I remember.
And all of a sudden I was like, people are putting my life in danger. What the hell? And I was like, I can't do this because I'm like not only was it putting me in danger, it was putting my family in danger. And I was like, this is just too much, and it's not worth being in like the spotlight for all this. And then like I took a day or two and I was like, you know what? This is why I have the Second Amendment.
Yep.
None of these 12-year-olds are actually going to pull up on my house because they would be scared shitless if they saw me in person.
Yeah. That plays a lot into like the cancel culture. I remember everyone was getting canceled around that time. It was like Emma was getting canceled, Nick got canceled. What is your opinion? Do you think it's actually effective, or do you think it's overused and it like diminishes people from like building character or character development?
I've always been kind of weird about cancel culture because I'm of the belief that people can grow and change, and that these behaviors that people have inherently are learned behaviors. I mean, racism is a learned behavior in all white people. I'm of the belief that most white people have like some ounce of racism in them. So when something happens that these things come out, I'm not surprised all the time. I can't say that I'm surprised most of the time, but however, instead of canceling them and continuously bringing it up, let people say something instead of constantly dogging on them. Because that was what I noticed about Emma, was that every single person just kept going in on her, and it like still goes on. I mean, the Republican Hype House had to bring it up like, I think it was like a month later, they kept bringing it up, and they continue to try and cancel people over it. And it's just kind of like, people are just so back and forth on who they cancel, who they don't. Don't cancel anyone. Actually take it as a moment to try and educate people. Because what you're doing when you cancel people is you're creating a negative connotation in people's heads with what's going on. So it's like, oh, because I believe this, people think I'm a bad person and no one wants to try and help me. I'm just a bad person for what I believe. And it's no. Well, let's talk about it. Why do you believe this way? And let's talk through it so we can kind of figure out the root of this issue.
And I've always kind of felt that way about Trump supporters too. I've always felt that they feel like they're marginalized. They're not, but they feel like they're marginalized. They feel like they're in trouble for believing in Trump. And it's like, you are kind of doing something wrong. Don't get me wrong, but like, you're not marginalized. You just need to stop and listen. Yes, he's a racist. Yes, he's a sexist. Yes, he's raped over 25 women. He's not a good man. We're not saying you're bad, Karen. We're saying your president's bad.
We're saying you're willfully ignoring certain information and choosing to call out other people, but not holding yourself accountable.
Yeah, and you know what? Since Nick blocked me anyways, I'll just say it. When everyone was dunking on Emma, he was just pissing me off because he's dunking on Emma like 3 days in a row. It's like, dude, you realize you said the N-word too, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I was like, the accountability. I feel like the left is held to a higher standard of accountability for their members versus the right.
Oh,
There's always a reason the right can get away with it. They're like, oh, well, free speech.
Exactly.
But if it's the left saying it, well, the tolerant left.
Well, just who started that? I mean, she got highly criticized for what she did.
Exactly. And people were calling her school too, which is what everyone had a problem with when the Nick situation was going on. And then they turned around and did the same thing to her. And I was like, if you didn't like it when it happened to your favorite person, why would you do it to someone else?
Must be a cognitive disconnect where they can't like empathize. I've always wondered if maybe it's an empathy problem. Like they just, not that their empathy is broken, but they just don't try to empathize.
Well, and that's how they are on most issues, I feel. Because when we talk about, the things they do to other people, there's never a sense of like accountability. When we're talking about, issues like sexual harassment with women, it's always, well, it happens to me too.
Yeah.
This happens too. Like, yes, we're talking about that in all cases. We're talking about this across the board. We're not singling out a certain way, but one way is disproportionately affected than the other.
Just
and
like
you can
that
use
all
your own
lives matter
platform to talk
crap.
about those. Oh yeah.
I hate that. It's like no one ever said all lives don't matter. What we're saying is right now, society treats Black lives like they're nothing.
Yeah. Like all lives
Society
matter
treats
is
them-
like contingent on everyone already being equal. There was no previous like disparity between them.
And
I
America
think
has
a lot of
never
that
been equal.
sense is there is no oppression. I don't want to generalize for the entire right, but they think a lot of things are equal when they aren't necessarily that way.
Oh, that's
Well,
their
you
number
know-
one comment. They'll say, "Oh, well, what oppression do women face? Oh, what oppression do Black people face? Give me a law." And it's like it's not about laws. The laws have been passed. People aren't following the laws. People are still discriminating. They're still harboring those ideas.
Exactly.
It's cultures.
Right, exactly. And that's why when I talk to people about American history, and I'm like, okay, can you lay out for me when in America it was great for every single person in America? Because you can't. There's no time in American history that has been great for everyone. And they think that, you know, racism died when we passed the Civil Rights Act. They think that homophobia died when we legalized gay marriage. It didn't. None of these things just disappear. They're inherently embedded into our society.
Do you follow Teen Nathan Lokius at all?
Oh, I love Teen Nathan so much.
He made a video today where there was a picture of a child holding up a sign that said, "Peaceful protests don't work because MLK did that, and y'all shot him anyways." And someone was like, "Well, MLK's protest worked at least." And Teen Nathan Lokius replied and said, "Lamo, tell me how that, explain how that's true." And I'm like, "Yeah, it didn't really work, did it? We still have problems."
Because racism still exists. I know it doesn't exist in your predominantly white Midwestern town, but unfortunately it does.
And that might be part of it too, because a lot of conservatives live in like your rural areas where they just don't come into contact with Black people. So maybe in their warped mind, they just don't see Black people, so the problem doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, I went to college in a very, very white area of Wisconsin, where every single person was a Trump supporter, and Trump got elected my freshman year of college, actually. And during that time, the amount of hate crimes and like hate acts that were done on campus were absolutely abhorrent. Like we had people vandalizing people's doors, saying like writing the N-word. And this was like a Black CA. There was people in pickup trucks flying the Confederate flag, trying to run over Black students as well as female students or students that appeared to be LGBTQ. We had people like trying to riot because Trump won. Like the entire night, it was just crazy. And me and a friend of mine were at the movies, and we're like walking up by all these people because we walked into the movie theater and Hillary Clinton was winning the election. We walked out and Trump had won. And we were like, what is going on? And we looked and we're like, oh no. And when I look back on it, I was upset because I saw this coming. Like I saw all of the things that are happening right now coming 4 years ago when I was a freshman in college and everyone was celebrating because America was going to go back to being great. Well, yes, we digressed in time. We had made some semblance of progress in regards to human rights, and then we had to digress back about 20 years or attempt.
I definitely remember where I was when that happened too. I was literally in this room on my bed, and my then at that time fiance, not married now, that failed, but she literally called me and she's like, "Trump won." I'm like, "No." She's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Yes." And I was just in disbelief for like 5 minutes, and she started breaking down in tears because unfortunately she is LGBTQ, she's bi, and she was just like, how am I going to continue? Like he's going to literally put us in conversion camps. I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to fight with you.
Yeah.
And so a few years later, I started a TikTok, and I'm glad that all of us here try to do our best. I definitely look up to you.
Thank you.
So thanks for doing what you do. I know you probably don't hear positive stuff very often.
Not really at all, actually. It's always mostly that I'm just, I feel so much white guilt. Well, no, I'm not like trying to show off my white guilt. I'm trying to actually use my privilege for something good and actually try and make a change in society. And even if I make thousands of people angry at me, I can still probably change at least one person's opinion in my comment section, or at least make someone sign a petition, make someone call their governor, make someone donate to a fundraiser or to someone who needs it. If I can do that for one person, then that's all I want.
I love how you brought up white guilt, because I think the best way to see white guilt is when someone says all lives matter. That's white guilt. When you're taking responsibility and saying, look, my ancestors were fucking terrible, but I'm going to stand up for what's right. I don't expect anything out of it. I don't want to be praised. I don't want anything like that. I just want to do the right thing. That's taking responsibility. When you say all lives matter, you're proving that you're guilty. You know you fucked up. You know your ancestors fucked up. You just don't want to talk about it.
Right. Well, and it's so prevalent in our history, especially what's taught to people. I've noticed that predominantly, most school systems, even the private schools and the charter schools, all teach very white history. And people don't really learn the real horrors of our history and what really happened. It's mostly on forgiveness of white people. It's never, we did these horrible things. We still see these today. We need to learn from it. I mean, in my town anyway, that I went to high school in, they are trying to completely redo their entire curriculum to focus on being anti-racist. So that's teaching good. And recommending more, Black authors, teaching more about Black history. And I am part of the group as well. And I was like, hey, if you guys really want to do something for Black history, you should also be focusing on LGBTQ history. Because in my experience in high school, there was so much hatred going on, not only to Black students, but also to the LGBTQI plus students. I mean, my best friend in high school almost took their own life because they were getting bullied and harassed at school for being trans. And a part of that history is so rooted in the civil rights movement. And you can't talk about Black history without talking about LGBTQI plus history.
Yeah, and I mean, I went to high school in the Midwest. I'll just say I went to high school in Nebraska. So as you can imagine, there was a lot of anti-trans and anti-gay everything in Nebraska. I remember there was a football game where literally a group of students basically shoved someone into one of the training lockers because they were trans, and the whole stadium was packed. No one did anything about it for like 10 minutes. It's just like, what the hell?
Yeah, because what my high school had done, we had a really weird, principle, that whole system there. And it was constantly the forgiveness of people who had high authority figure in the town. And they were always, the male football player, the guy who's, popular. Their parents give money to the town. They're reliant on their funds. So whenever these things happen, they were like, oh, you can just have in-school detention. The most that these people got for bullying someone for being who they were was in-school detention, which is just absolutely disgusting. And it's sadly something you see absolutely everywhere because there aren't enough people who are talking about protections for all students within their schools. There just isn't.
People wonder why riots and protests and they just turn so aggressive so quickly. It's like people are angry. They aren't being heard. And then instead of condemning like the actual actions that are happening against them, they're condemning like the protest styles. Like, do you realize that the issues that led to that?
Right. Are the years and years of oppression. And we see it so far back. It's not even just, as an adult. It's so far back and so deep rooted in our society. I mean, one of my favorite psychological studies that I have ever learned about was the baby doll experiment, where they sat down a bunch of young children and they sat out like a little sheet of baby dolls and they were ranging on this color of skin they had. And they would ask, okay, which one is the pretty baby doll? And they would point to the whichever one. And predominantly they chose the light skinned baby doll. And even the young Black girls and boys would choose the light-skinned baby doll. It was so absolutely eye-opening to me that this is what society is teaching children, that this one person because of their race is pretty and this person is good because they're this way and this person is bad because they're this way, but no one is inherently good or bad. No one is born bad.
I know that's something that I personally make a lot of videos about, just in general body positivity. Because not only with like skin color, but also size and shape. Especially for women. The media says, well, if you're too big, you're fat. If you're too skinny, well, you're anorexic. It's like, how the fuck do you win?
Exactly.
Too revealing, you're a slut.
Exactly.
Not really revealing enough, you're a prude. And then you have the skin color issue. Too dark, not good. Too light, get a tan. It's
Right.
just society wants women usually, but men too, to be literally everything at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, and there's like this trend that's going around on TikTok where like men are like saying how they feel about girls with different skin colors. I'm like, why? And then they hide it behind the guise of, oh, well, that's my preference. Okay.
Your preference is racist.
Yeah, your preference is inherently racist. Preference is like, oh, I like people with like blonde hair. I like people with brown eyes. I like people who like to play football. Not racist.
Right. My brother has two kids, both with different moms. They both happen to be African American, right? So I have a niece who's 14, and she once asked me, she's like, "Are you ever gonna go like your dad did?" And I'm like, "If the opportunity ever, or your brother did, like, yeah, if the opportunity ever happens, sure."
Right.
If I fall for anyone, I don't care, man.
Right. That's why
As
I
long
always
as you're
tell
not a
people
Republican,
that.
we're good.
Exactly. I'm like, as long as we can chill, and as long as we aren't going to disagree on human rights and basic things, then we're fine. However, there is the one case
Right.
where if you believe harmful ideologies are good for America, we cannot vibe.
It's very funny how some people end up together with the like exact opposite. Like you'll see like a super left wing person with a super conservative person. It's like, how do y'all get along?
I don't
Like
know.
they're not
'cause
grounded.
I've tried it. It doesn't work.
It really doesn't. But we're about halfway through here. Pride Month is something we haven't really talked a whole lot about. I know that you yourself are in the bi part of that.
Yes.
Anything that you want to plug charity wise, or anything cool you want to do for Pride Month?
Currently I am trying to talk a lot more about the roots of our history as an LGBTQIA plus person. Because I think currently today we see so much representation from the same cis white het men, not cis het men, but cis men who are white and gay. And that's really the only representation they get. I mean, you see it in pop culture. I mean, with RuPaul's Drag Race, there's no trans representation. There's none. And it's not, and the movement wasn't even started off of white men. It was started off of Black trans women and lesbians. People who are constantly overlooked when we're talking about movements and talking about history. We never talk about female figures in history, especially in regards to human rights.
I think one thing I want to do this Pride Month, with whatever of it's left after being banned, I want to focus on the fetishization, you know what word I'm trying to say, of lesbians, because there's so many straight males out there like, yeah, that's so hot. And it's like, dude, they're people.
Because
You're
women are
reducing
seen
them
as
to
a
one thing.
commodity.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
that's I think across the board for woman-loving women, because as lesbians are constantly fetishized because they're attracted to women. They're like, oh yeah, that's hot. That's like what I watch. Gross. And then with bisexual girls, they will be like, oh, well, you're bi, so you must want to do this with me and another person, right? And I'm like, no, I would rather never go near you ever again. Please lose my number and never contact me. This is going to be a no from me. It's just like a constant thing of like, oh yeah, that's hot. But I don't like when I see gay men kissing. I don't like trans people. Like, you can't selectively be for something because you're going to fetishize them because it's convenient for you and it helps you, get your rocks off, but not stand for everything. And these are the same people who want to be in a part of the S in the LGBTQI community for straight people.
See, I'm hoping some of that will go away with education, because I'll out myself here. There was a time that I was a conservative, unfortunately. That fiance I mentioned, she did a lot of deprogramming for me. I learned that she was bi, and the first thing I asked her, I was like, does that mean we have to have a woman in the relationship? And she's like, are you fucking stupid? I'm like, no, I just don't know. How does this work? And she's like,
yeah, I mean, and that's
I'm just attracted to women, but I'm with you, so
right. I feel like no one ever talks about non-traditional relationships, because it's so embedded in our society to see a mom and a dad and they all live in a happy family with their 3 children.
Yep.
And that's just not the reality anymore. I mean, I meet so many single mothers and single fathers and 2 dad household and 2 mom household people, and they are some of the nicest people and they have some of the most interesting lives, yet we don't talk about them at all. And people, whenever I talk to children too, because I used to coach gymnastics, there was one girl that had 2 moms, and these other girls in the class, they were like kind of picking on her. And they were like, she has 2 mommies. That's weird. And I'm like, well, some people have 2 mommies. Some people have 2 daddies. Some people have 1 mommy and no daddy, or 1 daddy and no mommy. And some people just have a mommy and daddy. Everyone's family is a little bit different. And yours may be one way, but that doesn't mean that her family is any less than yours.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, because growing up, I also grew up in a very conservative household, but I lived in a very progressive state. So I was kind of forced to recognize differences in other people and like realize like, oh yeah, this is how things really are. It's not just my super white town. It's also like numerous other factors that are going in here. And actually realizing like there are other people and actually finding out like how to appreciate other people and appreciate for all the things they bring to our community and to our society is so incredibly awesome. And just learning about it too is so incredibly fascinating. I mean, learning about the LGBTQ community was one of the most important things of my entire life. And it also like further helped me figure out what the fuck was going on.
No, it's really cool too.
I would love to know. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead, Hungry.
I have seen, and I didn't know this was a thing, that there is a bit of a conflict between pansexuals and bisexuals. Do you know much about that? And like, can you explain it? Because this is new to me.
Yeah, I mean, some people think that bisexuality is inherently transphobic, because most bisexual people are like, oh yeah, I only date men and women. And people think that doesn't include trans individuals. And for some bi people, that's how it is. They don't include trans individuals. Personally, for me, I don't really care. Like whoever I'm attracted to, if I'm attracted to, that's really it for me. And I just use bisexual because that's easier to explain for people than it is to describe pansexuality, because pansexuality kind of gets very blurred in a lot of lines, especially with like explaining it to people, because there are people who genuinely think pansexuality means you're attracted to cooking appliances.
I've seen
That's
that.
not the case. But I always notice it in my comment section because someone was like, being pan is inherently transphobic. I'm like, no, pansexual genuinely just means gender is not an actual like thing for you. You're more focused on like personality, whereas bisexuality is like, oh yeah, you like kind of have a preference based on like gender or whatever to some people.
I'm glad we got into the trans topic because a lot of straight men, I feel like the reason that they're so transphobic is they're afraid of being gay if they're with a trans person. Like Violet Magic Sin was doing a video about that. She's like, I just don't want. Oh no, it was Tyler Bluntman, wasn't it? Yeah.
Oh God.
He was basically saying that
Even
like
worse.
they're trying to make us gay, and it's like, no, Tyler, you're just dumb. If you're attracted to a woman, if you're straight and you're attracted to a transsexual, it's because they're enough of a woman, because they are a woman, that you're attracted to them. So who cares?
Right.
Like
and
if you're straight, you can be straight.
And most of the time you can't even tell.
Right. And I mean, if you're attracted to them, obviously they're pulling that off well enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you should just treat
And
them.
I mean,
like
it shouldn't matter to some people, but I've heard of, because a lot of big influencers and creators sometimes, choose to come out later in their media, presence, in their media story, whatever the heck it is. Like Nikki Tutorials came out as trans earlier this year because people were threatening to blackmail her. And a lot of people were like, well, doesn't your husband feel like you lied to him because you didn't tell him that you're actually like a man? And she's like, no, I'm a woman. I am a woman, but I didn't lie to anyone. That's who I actually am. And if you didn't even need me to tell you that I was, then why is it your concern? Like, why are you so so concerned with what's going on in someone's pants. That is always my question.
Absolutely. And I think it really does come back to straight men just being afraid to be gay, because in society, we've made gay a bad thing. Like when I was a kid, the word gay meant bad. And I still remember the Lizzie McGuire commercials where it's like, well, you wouldn't want someone to say that's so Brad, right? So stop saying that's so gay. And like over the last 10 years, we've made massive progress. But I think in a lot of people's minds, gay is still bad.
Yeah.
And I think the reason for it, especially for men, is because being woman is bad. Being feminine is bad. Because as an adult man today, I get made of for having cats. People make fun of me for being a cat daddy. I'm like, fuck you. I love cats.
Right.
Like, I don't care if that's feminine. I love cats.
Like, how do you attach femininity to an animal or a drink or a piece of cloth? Like, how do you attach a gender to that?
That's a good topic, because people also make fun of men who like fruity drinks, right? Like if you want like a Long Island iced tea, which I love, by the way.
I love Long Island iced tea.
You're not drinking beer? What's wrong with you? Are you gay? I mean, if I was, who cares? Like,
right? Like, why? Like, it wouldn't even concern you. I'm not trying to sleep with you. Like,
right.
Like as someone who has bartended, I have noticed so many people coming into my job being inherently like sexist, but towards men.
Yep.
Like they will sit at the bar and like they'll be like, oh yeah, and he's gonna get some girly drink, and he literally gets like a Blue Moon, and I'm like, that's a girly drink to you? Because they're not drinking Bud Light, it's a girly drink. Are you serious?
Or like straight scotch, and it's like, well,
I mean,
you're just not man enough. And it's like, it's just it's sugar. We're all addicted to sugar.
Literally,
I drink daiquiris. Like,
oh, I love daiquiris. I am such a open person to like those things. That my favorite thing with these men too is that they'll come in and they're like, I'm a really good drinker. I love my scotch and my whiskey, and they'll drink it and they'll like do the whole like shiver thing after they do it, and I'm like, are you really a big drinker? Are you really? Because that shudder right there would tell me otherwise.
Yeah, I don't get to have those girly drinks much anymore since I'm diabetic, but if I'm drinking, it's usually something very bad for me.
Right? I mean, why not if you're going out to enjoy yourself?
Right.
Sometimes we need it.
There's so much that's tied to sex and gender in our culture, and it's just dumb. I think if we were to desexualize women, that would go a long way. Because right now, like, men just look at women as sex. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Like, why is there a difference between bikinis and lingerie? You know what I mean?
Right. Like I could walk down the beach in the Cape right now and be fine in a bikini. But if I went out in my underwear, then we'd have an issue, even though it's literally the same thing. The same thing.
But I mean, that shit's been going on since like the beginning of time. And Hungry and I actually debated two people who over legalizing prostitution. And one of our arguments was that women are already, overly sexualized. Why not capitalize on it?
Exactly. And I mean, there's no one getting hurt in that.
Yeah. That's another one of our points. It's victimless.
It is a victimless crime. See, I got into a debate with a libertarian on some like Zoom chat like forever ago about the legalization of marijuana and the legalization of sex work. And they were like, well, it's just not morally right. And I'm like, why is it not morally right? People do it anyway. Why not let people, capitalize off it if you're so adamant about the free market?
Well, in the United States specifically, we have a huge problem with separation of church and state because we say that, right? But all of our morals are based on Judeo-Christian morals, which, I mean, that's not separation of church and state.
No, exactly. And there's so many people who are trying to bring the Bible back into our Constitution and our country. And I'm like, why? Not in I believe someone was saying that in 2020 or like by 2021, white people would no longer be the majority. And at that point, getting more and more, representation from other people in the United States with different religious backgrounds is going to make the logic of having Judeo-Christian morals and Judeo-Christian laws in place pointless, because not everyone would believe that way.
Yep.
That's like one of the great things about America is you can believe whatever you want to believe in religiously, and no one's going to hurt you for it.
I mean, in theory, but in reality, you can believe in whatever you want to believe as long as it's the right thing.
Oh yeah, exactly. As long as you are a good old Christian woman, you are golden in our eyes.
Because I remember, so socialist again. Sorry, I don't mean to bring that up every 5 minutes, but back when the Soviets were still a thing, when the USSR was still a thing, they put "In God We Trust" in the money to directly, what's the word I'm looking for? Contrast the Soviet Union. And there are conservatives today that don't know that. They believe that's always been there. They believe that that's how we were founded. It's like, no, we were not founded by that.
Yeah, a lot of that didn't happen until like the Eisenhower administration.
Yeah,
It was like under God and the not Declaration of Independence, the Pledge of Allegiance.
He was the Trump of his era. He was very much authoritarian. He was very much like Trump, very militaristic.
Oh yeah, Trump loves the big boom booms. Love that.
I've got to ask it now. There's a picture going on that shows, Stormy Daniels' testimony of what his, what looks like. There's a picture going around that is supposedly real that very much matches her description. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe it just because of how small
it was the beautiful spray tan and a little wang out.
I mean, there's a reason that he's this way. It's because he's compensating for something.
Yeah. Just like those guys
driving a lifted truck.
Yeah. Just like those guys that drive like the huge goddamn trucks.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
Those men would always stop me when I was leaving the bars in college, and they would always be like, "Don't you need a ride home?" And I was like, "No, absolutely not. Not with you."
You should have said, "You don't have the equipment to take care of
it." Exactly. Yeah, no.
Be the once over.
Men. They'll be like, "Nice girls don't exist. All women are bad, but nice guys exist." And I'll be like, "No, you're just not a good person. You're just garbage."
Yeah, we should actually talk about that too. That whole, a key that opens many locks is a good key, and a lock that opens any key is a bad lock. Have you heard that before?
Is this in reference to that guy that I like clapped back at forever ago?
It might be. I don't remember, but it's the general idea that men think that women should be chased. Yeah, Nick Foster Jones, that guy.
Oh God. He keeps relying on me to make content. It's actually kind of funny now. I'm like, the conservatives are running out of ideas. Now they're using me to make content.
I need views.
Like, thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
That man. Ugh.
He follows me, and I made a video responding to him following me, but people thought that I was mad that he had 150,000 followers. And I was like, if you genuinely think I give two shits about followers, you are mistaken.
I know what I was going to ask you. So there's a lot of, I've learned this in the last couple of Zoom calls I've been in with some of the younger political TikToks in the hype houses. I didn't know that there was so much drama and recording Zooms of people saying not kind things about each other. I know you've been in 2 different hype houses. How is it?
Well, I was kicked out of one of them because I didn't want to apologize for sitting in a Zoom call that wasn't mine. And I'll own up to that. I didn't apologize initially because, I was being doxxed and threatened by literal, neo-Nazis. So I don't think I was in the right mindset to do that. But that's neither here or there. I did apologize, and I do hold myself accountable for being in that Zoom call. That was a wrong thing of me to do. But then I left leftists a couple weeks ago just because of my own mental health and that whole stuff. But also I am just on a completely different kind of priority right now. I'm trying to post about things that are actually important, the Black Lives Matter movement, racial inequality in America, LGBTQIA plus month, things that are important and prevalent to talk about right now. And just constantly being surrounded by all this drama that was going on. I was like, I'm just not trying to be involved. It's too much, and it's not good on my mental health, especially if I'm constantly worrying about people who are claiming to be my friends to be talking about me behind my back, or saying that I'm not a real leftist or whatever the heck is going on.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with the real leftists and people changing their ideologies. And I know a lot of people are very young on the app, so it makes sense that they aren't grounded as other people.
Yeah.
But some of the backlash that people have been getting, I don't think has been necessarily warranted.
No, I
Especially
mean,
because I don't think they actually do any kind of foundation work, like you said. They don't read theory. They don't do anything like that. Like in our Hype House, we have a book club. It's not mandatory, but basically all of us do participate, and we're all kind of on the same page. So drama doesn't really happen all that much, which is good.
right. I mean, I think it's a lot of big personalities all in one area, and a lot of people who, are very young and probably, enjoy having some kind of, popularity in a way and kind of pull over people. It very like I hate to say it because I have done things that I will take myself like fully accountable for, like being problematic in the past. But it just felt very much like, Mean Girls in a way. Like if you cross these people or if you did something they didn't like they would bully you into believing what they want you to believe. Like I was bullied into making an apology that I didn't even believe whatsoever by people who are 15 years old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm 21 years old. This is too much for me. I don't need to be constantly having my belief systems questioned at every turn I take. If I'm posting about something, I'm posting about it because I deem it's important right now. I'm not going to post about some kid changed their political belief system and I'm now so upset about it. It's not my concern. There are bigger things to talk about.
What do you think the direction should be for political TikTok? Because it's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so focused on drama between the groups right now. It's conservative hype house making a video about leftists making a video about Nick videos, Nick videos making a video about other people in Republican hype house. It's all drama and it's all personal shit that, quite frankly, no one cares about. I don't really care what someone did in the Republican hype house privately trying to hack their account. I don't care. Like, deal with those things in private. Right. Don't post them online for everyone to see because no one cares. Like people are talking about a lot more important issues right now. And now is not the time to be being like, oh yes, we're fighting over the rights of the group and we're trying to radicalize everyone and start being mean to people. And we talk about people not being true leftists. No, talk about the actual issues in America. Spotlight the things that need to be spotlighted. Don't talk about things within your friend groups that you can discuss in private.
I think that's one thing I like about our hype house specifically is like my personal account. I do talk mostly about social issues, right? I don't usually talk a lot about politics. I talk more about Black Lives Matter, feminism, things like that. But then on the hype house, I usually talk about socialism. I mean, yesterday I did make a video that was really fluff. I just kind of looked at, handsome socialist guys and said they were handsome. But I look at all the other hype houses, and you're right. It's mostly drama. It's like, well, who did this to who, and what's Nick Videos doing today?
Right.
Which, of course, I think all of us get kind of sucked into that sometimes because sometimes he does some very bad things. Right. Like begging underage girls for sex, for example.
Yeah, that's like holding them accountable versus just attacking them for their character.
Right. Like, because I think holding people accountable is very important. And I think, make one post about it. Do it once if you need to, and then private it later. Don't keep it public and like use it as constant content. Like I've taken a lot of my older, like calling out Nick Videos stuff down just because it's not benefiting anyone. And if anything, it's just continuing to platform him more.
Yeah.
And, people came up in one of my videos, a lot of people who consider themselves leftists on the app. I posted a video where I was saying like, oh, let's stop platforming bad people. And all of them were like, LOL, this is ironic. I'm like, how is this ironic? Like, I'm just trying to tell my followers to not platform people. How is that problematic or ironic? I'm really confused.
I have a message in the private chat for you guys real quick. I guess I'll just say it out loud too. We'll start wrapping this up here shortly. I did have one more question that came to mind. Is there anything that you want to kind of plug while we don't have the hugest audience, but it'll be up forever. So anything you want to plug?
I am GabiKatharina on TikTok. My backup is GabiKatharina 2.0 when inevitably TikTok decides to ban me for speaking out on social issues. I'm also GabiKatharina on YouTube and GabiKatharina XX on Instagram. I have to think about all my socials in my head. They're all different.
Just look for the very fierce woman that everyone's afraid of for some reason. You'll find her.
Some incel is probably telling me that I am stupid.
Yeah. Hungry, did you have anything else you wanted to ask her before we opened up the floor to?
No, I think that was really good. I think you covered everything I could think of. Lucas is clapping.
Cool. So, audience, we're now opening it up to audience questions if anyone has any. I did have one earlier that I wanted to answer just because it was funny. Let me find it. Here it is. I want to say yes, it's red. It's Glorious Communist Red. It might, for the future, be switching between Glorious Communist Red and Glorious Communist Yellow from now on.
Yes.
We'll see.
Thank God. I just love reading the live comments because sometimes the live comments can be so entertaining. They can be more entertaining than the video itself.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes it's just where do these people? That's actually something I've noticed. So we're all fairly older for TikTok, right? Have you noticed that there's a lot of younger members that name themselves things that are just really bizarre, like pee pee poo poo and butt fucker McGee and just all these weird ass names. Like when I was growing up, that shit was weird. You wanted to be cool. You wanted to be like Marty McFly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was always something involving moons because I always loved the moon. The moon is one of my favorite things to do, to look at. So I just I was always cat eclipse because I liked cats.
All right, so we had a question here. How do you feel about dress codes in school?
Oh God, coming from a place that had very strict dress codes, and people just, it's always about sexualizing women. It has always been about sexualizing women and sexualizing young women who are below the age of 18. I mean, in high school, it only applied to certain people too, because if you were well liked or if you had an affluent family, if you walked around in super short shorts where everyone could see your behind, they were like, oh yeah, that's fine. But I wore a very thin strap dress and they were like, you need to go get changed. That is not appropriate. You need to change or you will be sent home. And I was like, why? Because that kid right next to me has his entire shirt cut down that you can see the entire side of his body. And that's okay? Okay. Makes sense.
It's especially bad. So I went to a Christian private school from fourth grade to 8th grade, I believe. And the uniforms for that, they're skirts and button-up shirts. And it's extremely not great because I'm sorry, I was young. I saw a lot of upskirts that year. And I feel bad about it now, but as a teenage boy, what are you going to do?
Right. I mean, and also with the Christian school dress codes, they're inherently, they help with the sexualization of minors as well, because that has now become a fetish for people.
Yeah.
It's little schoolgirl type shit. And I'm like, why? Why are people openly sexualizing children and having no second thoughts about it?
They do
they should be pants and shirts, just very gender neutral.
There you go.
Get rid of the skirts.
Right.
Yeah.
Why does it have to be a skirt? Especially because there are so many children who are uncomfortable in their body. So it's just
So this is a tradition in our hype house. I always ask Kristen this, so I guess she felt like she had to ask it. Is Stalin daddy?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
10 on record. Super based.
Woohoo! Okay. So maybe that's something we can expand on a little bit here. Would you consider yourself a socialist?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I would.
So do you read theory? If so, what's your favorite theory book?
I have not looked into any theory at the moment because I'm reading a lot of pro-choice literature right now because it's something I really want to be able to educate myself a little bit more on. But I've been told that I should be reading Lenin.
Yes, State and Revolution was great. No matter what else, who else in my hype house thinks not?
It was hard to read. But it's good.
It is.
Yes, and then we're reading
Also, Lennon likes cats.
Conquest of bread.
Ooh.
So.
This like anarcho-communist theory.
Yes.
It's a lot nicer on the eyes, you know.
Yeah,
read
but
it a lot faster.
Kropotkin was not a cat daddy, so that makes State and Ref better.
Exactly.
Got a beard.
Oh my god.
I just have to shame this comment. No. Wrong. Okay. All right, we have another question. I'm sorry. I don't mean to make a meme out of it. But what do you think about mixed economy?
No, I don't. I choose not to. I choose not to say that.
Well, I guess, Guy, we talked about it earlier. Women have better sex under socialism, so there's your answer.
There you go. Socialists are just objectively better.
Oh, yeah. Was this a question? Clearly, police brutality is one of the biggest issues in America today. A lot of people are speaking out against it. But how exactly would you solve this problem?
Ooh, well, I think when you look at things that have happened in like New York City, where their police department went on a protest or a strike and crime rates went down, it's almost like you can see that the system itself isn't working and people are going to commit crime regardless. However, police in themselves don't really do anything except give out parking tickets.
Yeah.
And that's
I
really
think that's like community-led policing. I think is what the Minneapolis area is going to start doing.
Yeah, which I think is better, and it's going to give more, accountability and maybe actually like an actual representation of what's actually going on, and not just reflect poorly of one place because of, the amount of policing that's in that area. Because we
that's
over-policing.
similar to. Oh, sorry.
Well, no, we do see it with over-policing, though, in those areas that we see like a large spike of crime. And it's not that crime is happening more often. It's that more people are either getting caught or more people are given harsher punishments for things that people in white neighborhoods or predominantly white neighborhoods wouldn't be affected by.
Yeah, there's actually a great TikTok sound. It's something like, black neighborhoods are over-policed, so of course there's higher crime.
Yes,
white
I heard that
perpetrators
today.
don't face consequences, so of course there's less crime, something like that.
Yeah, because like my favorite thing to explain to people is that there is no disparity between either race in regards to committing crime. As a matter of fact, like people who are naturally born in the United States are more likely to commit crime. So it's always funny to me when people like try and say these things about undocumented immigrants or about the Black community. I'm like, they literally don't affect the way that you think that they're affecting you. You're actually hurting your own argument in the process.
And I think that's just one of the problems that we have. Unfortunately, I don't mean to broad strokes it, but with conservatives and some Democrats, they just don't think outside of their sphere of influence. Like I was talking about earlier, if you live in a small rural place, you just don't come across black people, so you don't think about them. You think about your community.
Right. And so, of course, when you live in those communities, then you go to actual cities and actual areas where there is diversity, and it's just like, well, of course, these people are going to be terrified because that's what the media is projecting to them, that's what society is projecting towards them about those areas.
Sorry, we had to showcase Henry's beautiful. Henry's beautiful.
I know he's like,
Mariah's
you're beautiful.
Listen, these
Gabby and then Crazybeard.
Crazybeard has. Well, I saw Crazybeard's YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, huh?
I think. Awesome. All right, we'll probably do this about 5 more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions? While we wait for questions, I guess I just wanted to say thanks again for coming and hanging out with us.
Oh yeah, of course, anytime. It was so awesome. It was just awesome to talk to you guys.
And definitely know that you have friends in the Social Site House. We always stand you.
Hey, I love having friends who are my age.
Yeah, it's very rare to find on TikTok. One thing that's frustrated me lately, so back when Nick Videos was bitching about me talking about him, he'd be like, well, you're 28, you don't get to have an opinion. Nick, you fucking beg women for sex on political TikTok, which I am part of. Yes, I get a say in that.
Right.
It gets me so pissed off when people are like, you're 28, you shouldn't be commenting on these people's videos. Bitch, they shouldn't be making adult content if they don't want adult consequences.
Right, exactly. And it's just like, as an adult and as someone who watches these things happen, of course I'm going to speak out on it because it feels, morally correct to speak out on it since I am an adult figure. If I sit there and I don't say anything, then it feels like I'm being complacent in these actions and telling people that it's okay to act that way. I mean, ultimately, we're shaping future generations.
All right, this was a good question. Which communist has the best fashion?
Ooh. That's so hard.
Yeah. I mean, Che Guevara comes to mind for starters. He is a pretty man.
That is true. You're right. You know what? I'll agree with you on that one. I'm gonna agree.
I mean, I love Stalin's mustache, but man, that long hair. Like, if I could have that long hair, I'd be so happy. Or any hair.
Throw it out.
Like, do you know who Smooth McGroove is by any chance?
No.
Look him up later. He does video game music. He does like acapella versions of them. He has a long ass beard and long like Jesus hair, and that's what I would look like if I could. If I could grow out long hair, that's exactly what I'd look like.
Yes.
He also has a black cat, so that might be why. Lukoslav says that was a trick question. It's all of them.
It's all of them. See, that's why it's hard. Everyone has good fashion. And also, yeah. I don't really have a sense of fashion right now. It's just kind of, I roll out of bed couture.
Yeah, I've never had any fashion sense. I'm wearing a Marvel shirt, which I feel really guilty about because it's so capitalist, but also I love Marvel.
There you go. I mean, capitalism isn't really based, but sometimes you have to make exceptions for Marvel.
Like, I wonder what's going to happen to Deadpool once we have the revolution in Minecraft.
Oh no, Deadpool is going down.
All right, about 3 more minutes, y'all. Anyone have any other questions for our wonderful guest? I think this will probably be our biggest guest we have for a long time.
We're pondering starting a podcast at some point, so maybe we'll have you back on.
Ooh, yes, I would love to do a podcast. That'd be awesome.
Speculation.
We haven't talked about what we're going to do if we get sponsored. Like, again, capitalism. I'd love to have a free Quip toothbrush, but capitalism.
Right? I would love some toothbrushes that are kind of expensive and I don't really want to buy, but capitalism kills.
The Quip toothbrush is actually really good.
Really?
Yeah.
I've been looking at it because I need to get a new one because my dentist still isn't open this year. So
well, the thing that sucks is you just never realize how long 2 minutes actually is. 2 minutes is a long goddamn time.
Right? As you're washing your hands too, I didn't realize how long it takes to wash my hands. Yeah. I'm actually counting because of coronavirus. Because I work with food and I'm like, oh my God, this is taking forever.
Yeah, definitely. When I used to manage at McDonald's, we had mandatory hand washing every hour when it was enforced anyways. And we had a thing you were supposed to sing your ABCs while you did it. So I would actually, my first year as a manager, I would make people do it. I'd have customers come up and why are you guys singing the ABCs back there? We're washing our hands.
So we're washing them.
Are you kindergartners? Yes.
Yes. 100%.
I got lazy because they only pay you $10 an hour as a manager. And I was like, fuck that.
Oh, yeah, no.
But I was also a horrible manager because I was 18, so.
See, they tried to make me a bar manager, and I was like, you know what? I am 21 years old. I think I am probably one of the most stressed out individuals in the entire planet that if someone yelled at me, I would probably cry. So, bad idea.
Here's a question, I think. What's your opinion on the current issues that trans and others in the LGBTQ plus community are currently facing in the Middle East and Eastern Europe?
Oh God, I mean, it's really heartbreaking to hear about because when you think about it, we're talking about social issues. Most people only think about the United States. It's not really very globalized. They just think about their own little bubble, which is what I've kind of noticed about America as a whole, especially in studying, sociology in college and studying psychology and cultural psychology. Mostly Americans love to focus on themselves. And so we only really focus on what's going around us. And so when you see what's happening in Poland right now with the anti-LGBTQ zones, it's absolutely heartbreaking because you have to then think, well, I'm lucky enough to be able to go outside and be who I am and celebrate myself when these people are living in essentially fear because they can't be outed. They can't live as their actual selves. And especially in the Middle East too, they can't live as they truly are. And it's absolutely heartbreaking.
And that brings up a great question, actually. Do you know, probably you do, but do you know what a hijab is?
Yes.
What do you feel about that being a feminist? Because that's kind of their culture, but also it's still sexist in a way. Should we make them abolish that, even though that's their beliefs, or you think we should leave that alone? What should we do with that?
I mean, I'm so torn on it because it is like a religious freedom, and I believe everyone who has, because religion is up to your own interpretation, is 100% my belief, because I don't think you will ever meet people who are not related to each other, or even you actually might meet people who aren't even like the same, but they say this, that they believe in the same thing. Like, oh, I'm Christian, but I don't believe in this, or I'm Jewish, but I don't believe in this, but everyone else believes this way. And there's just such a broad spectrum of it that, like, I think some women who are Muslim take the hijab as something to celebrate their culture and to celebrate their religion, and they take it as a symbol of empowerment. However, for a lot of women, it is used as a way to kind of oppress them in a way.
And like, I was all set to debate Heisenberg over that because he was being Islamophobic, and I was ready for him to bring that up, and I was going to openly condemn that because to me, like, it should be a choice. If a woman wants to do it, she should be able to do it, but otherwise, no. There's also other issues too, unfortunately, like. The fifth pillar of Islam is the trip to Mecca, and women actually in Saudi Arabia that are caught going to Mecca on their own face like stoning to death, basically, for doing it.
Yeah.
Because they're property, they're not people. So there's a lot of problematic stuff there.
Right.
But I still condemn Heisenberg for being Islamophobic because at least in America, it's a marginalized community, and you don't punch down. You don't make jokes about how Muslims blow up buildings. But
exactly.
I mean, I've been meaning to call him out for a while. He's been very Republican lately.
Oh, did you see what he's doing with Conscious Lee and how he reported him to Homeland Security?
What?
Yeah, he took his videos and sent them to Homeland Security. And then today he made videos trying to tell people to call CPS on him after he almost lost his own son.
I think some real communists are about to have some beef with that man.
Yeah. I'm like, you're pulling an Amy Cooper, my dude. You are putting someone's life in danger because you don't agree with them. What are you doing?
We'll do the opposite here, and we'll say, Conscious Lee, that man's awesome.
Oh, I love Conscious Lee so much.
But I will say he uses so much slang, sometimes I have a hard time understanding.
He's just so, like, he's so smart with what he's saying, but he says it in such a casual way that I'm like, huh, I didn't think of it that way ever before.
Well, and he too was going to debate Heisenberg over the Islamophobia thing too, and I was like, man, Conscious Lee is going to wreck him. He's like a literal champion of college debates.
Yeah, he's very good at debating.
But then Heisenberg chickened out over both of them.
I feel like I should take debate advice from Conscious Lee because I would be unstoppable at that point. And right now we have a lot of anxiety that happens when I debate, and I'm like, yes, I'm a robot now.
Yeah, I mean, debates are fun and everything, but I think honestly I prefer this format a little bit, just getting to talk to cool people. Yeah, because I love doing political TikTok, but goddamn, conservatives stress me out.
Oh my god, yeah. They're like, we're gonna red pill you. I'm like, no, you cannot physically do that to me. I have been radicalized in college, but nice try.
And I mean, again, if you understand theory, if you understand why you believe what you believe, you're a lot less likely to sway.
Exactly.
Like that politics with Sophie, I don't think she had an understanding of what she was saying.
That's what I think too.
She just kind of said what was popular because, I mean, at least in the young sphere, being a liberal is popular, right?
Yeah.
Most young people are liberals. So I think a lot of liberals are just kind of doing it because that's what's popular.
Yeah. And I mean, I noticed that with everything that was happening yesterday is that she was saying things, but there wasn't really anything to back it up. And I think when you're talking about your political ideology, I think before you speak on it, you should probably like do a little bit of research on what you're saying, just so you know that you fully believe what you actually believe in, and not that you're just saying something because everyone else is saying it.
So this is a total meme, and I apologize. I think we'll wrap this up here shortly. But you just said something that reminded me of something. You said back it up. We have a Hype House member named Jonah who he said he would do the Renegade at 20K, and then he took it down. We've been teasing him to throw it back for a long time. Do you think Jonah should throw it back at 50, 55K maybe?
Yes, Jonah should throw it back immediately.
Yeah, you got to listen to Gabby. She's the boss.
Yes, I am. I'm in charge of all the old people. So do it, or I'll make a video on you. No, I'm kidding.
Well, HungryRye, do you have anything more you want to ask?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much again for coming and hanging with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think
awesome.
They speak for all of us again. I mean, you are really one of our role models. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Alrighty, well, I'll go ahead and end it, and we can say our goodbyes in the studio real quick. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, and yeah, have a good one. And